Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. So today we got the GTENG T905F FPV quadcopter, and this is basically a brushed kind of toy grade quadcopter. I think I reviewed the GTENG Spider that has a similar kind of a FPV remote controller and screen built in, but what we're going to do today, kind of getting ahead of myself, sorry, we're going to unbox this, inspect it, do a full review, set it up, and also get out there into the park and do a full flight test with some pros and cons. So this is going to be kind of an all-in-one review, and basically this is the box it comes in. Sorry, it's kind of large and doesn't really fit in my screen here all the way, but this is basically what it is. I'm just flipping the box over and you can see that it has this controller here, kind of a unique slick design with the screen built in, and there's the quadcopter here. It looks like it's going to have some good lighting with these light cups. It's got 5.8 gigahertz FPV that's going to transmit to the controller screen. This one also has altitude hold, so you know it's going to be able to maintain its altitude hold supposedly. We're going to definitely be checking all that out in the flight test. Don't forget, I will have the link down there in the description, so if you go below the video in the description of the video and check out that link I'll have down there, you can click on that link and get the current pricing and also the further specs at the website on what this thing's all about. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start the unboxing. It's also called, I don't know if you saw that, but it's called the Pterosauria, or Pterosaur maybe. But anyway, that's the kind of name they're trying to give it. But here it is here. Here's the quad. It's a neat looking black and gray quad. Kind of has an interesting design. Looks like it has this little visor that protrudes over the camera here. So kind of interesting. And the camera, okay, so it looks like the camera may be, I'm feeling some like resistance here. So maybe the camera is remotely controllable pitch. So we'll have to test that out when we fire this up on the bench in just a second, but it feels like it may be, I'm not sure, I can't really tell. But anyway, we'll try to see how that works in just a sec. Anyway, there's the blades are already mounted up, the propellers. It's a brushed motor with some gearing in there, kind of like all these other kind of toy type quads. And the propeller guards are already installed. We can see that these are already installed here. It doesn't look like there's any screws on these, so these could possibly just pull right off, and that's what it looks like is happening here. So if you don't want to use the propeller guards, like if you're already good at flying, it looks like you can just pop these off. Oh, there was one screw. Looks like I just ripped that screw through there. I couldn't see it because of the propeller, but there is one screw there holding on the propeller guard, and then the two other ends are just pins. Anyway, if you're a total beginner flyer, keep these on. If you're a little more advanced, go ahead and take them off and you'll get more flight time and less wind resistance. Flipping it over, we can see that we have nice, highly visible light cups here, and this is kind of a harder plastic with kind of like this diamond pattern in there, so it looks like it's going to really be bright for like night flying or even daytime flying. And then flipping it over here on the bottom, we've got this little door here. It is like a slide lock door, and we can pull this open. There's a hinge that stays on there, always nice. And here's the battery here, so just pulling this battery out. Now this is an interesting connector. I honestly have not seen this connector before. This is like an enlarged version of maybe a Walkera Micro or Losi Micro connector. You see how there's 4 cables going into it. So this is basically a 7.4 volt battery, and it basically looks like a different kind of balance port. So it's like a mini balance, I guess. Maybe this is a new port, new connector I don't know about yet, but kind of interesting. 7.4 volt, 350 milliamp battery, so a pretty small little battery, but it is 7.4 volt here. The 5.8 gigahertz antenna is sticking out the side here, so that's what's going to transmit the video. So that's the quad there. Let's set this on the side. I actually should have unboxed everything first, kind of going backwards on this one. Anyways, here's a bag of goodies. We'll go over that in just a sec. And the last thing in the box here is the controller. So a neat looking all-inclusive controller. We've got triggers, all these buttons along the top, and you can see that the left control stick is spring-loaded. So that's going to be our altitude hold. So that's promising. There's nothing else in the box. And actually, I don't even see a manual, so that's too bad. No manual with this one. Looks like they forgot to put that in the box for me, so I'm just going to be kind of flying blindly with this one. But you know, I do have another GTENG, and I pretty much am kind of familiar with these controls here on the controller, so I don't think it's going to be very hard to figure all that out. Speaking of the controller, let's just kind of go in depth on this for just a sec. Basically, we have our throttle and our yaw stick, and like I said before, you can see that the throttle is spring-loaded, so that's going to be our altitude hold, where you let off in the air, and it should be able to hover there in a set altitude, and you can just fly around with this stick and the yaw. There's our power, so that's going to power on the screen, so you can power on the controller and the screen separate. Start and stop video, take pictures. This is going to be the brightness of the screen here. We have our trim functions for the right stick, pitch and roll over here, and our trim functions for the throttle and yaw stick. And I am noticing that the left and right thumbstick do actually click in, so that's going to probably be some kind of headless or return to home, or maybe a rate function. And the only other buttons are actually these triggers over here on the back, and these don't say anything, but there are actually 4. So you know, looks like we have a lot of functions here. If they all function, we're going to have to kind of just go ahead and try those all out when we do our flight test. There's the battery bay here, and that's cool. They give you another little LiPo. And this was that little micro low-C Wakera plug I was kind of talking about in the first place. You can see that this is the traditional 1S little Wakera battery plug, and you can see how it differentiates with this one. So maybe this is basically the same thing. I've just never seen them before, and this is just for a 7.4 volt battery, it looks. But kind of interesting that they give you a battery also for the controller, and that's going to power the entire controller plus the FPV screen. And let's see what this one is. So this one's a 450 milliamp 3.7 volt, so actually a little more capacity than this one, which is strange unless they labeled these wrong. You can see how small this one is and how big this one is. This one looks like more like a maybe a 650, so I'm thinking maybe that one is labeled wrong actually. But who knows, maybe it's right. These are 2 cells and they're thinner, so anyways, we'll just see how long it lasts in the air when we do our flight test. But there's the battery for the controller, and you're just going to plug it right into the connector there on the back of the controller, and to power the entire controller and the monitor. And this little guy here is just going to slide in, and it locks in pretty good. Doesn't seem like it's going to pull out. It's a little bit loose there, but there is a notch, so it's not going to come out on its own. There's a little screw hole there if you wanted to put a screw in there. And let's see what we get in the bag of goodies. So taking out all this stuff, we do get 4 extra propellers, so that's great on these guys for giving us a whole extra set of propellers. Newbies are going to be crashing a lot, and it looks like this will keep them in the air. Looks like these ones have a little notch in here, so they're going to be notched on the propeller shaft, and then there's a little screw in the side. They're also giving us a Phillips head screwdriver, 2 USB chargers, so we can see that we have one for that larger connector on the battery, and then we have another one for the small controller battery that you can plug into like a cell phone, power bank, or you know, laptop to charge those up. Then we have this little thumb card reader here, and this is going to be plugging into your computer to view your files, and they're giving us a 4 GB micro SD card to pop in the drone. So let's see where we actually pop that in. Okay, there it is. So when you have the door closed, you can see on the back here there is a little icon that has the way you put the card in. So it looks like it's going to go in with the writing down in this orientation, and it's just going to slide right in here. So slightly cumbersome to get in just because of the angle of this thing, but it does, if you push in hard enough, you do get that little click and it's staying in there. So that's going to take the onboard video, and looks like it's going to save it to the card. And then I didn't see that initially, but there is actually an on-off switch here, so you can plug in your power and you don't have to fly right away. You can power it on and off as you want. Alright, so honestly, when I was pulling off these propeller guards, I noticed something. Let me just take this last one off here. I went ahead and took out that metal screw, popping off the propeller guards because I'm not going to use them. But I noticed that, check this out, for the 2 rear propellers, they're kind of mangled out of the box. I'm not sure what's up with this. You can see this one is actually kind of cut here. I haven't done anything to do this yet. I haven't even flown this thing yet, so that's kind of disheartening out of the box. I've got one propeller that's kind of unusable, and the other one is kind of scratched up on the ends here. Looks like it'll still work, but I'm just going to go ahead and replace these two with you know, two of the extra ones they gave in the box. I don't know, maybe they did kind of a flight test at the factory on this one, and somebody crashed it. I hope it flies good for me, but let me go ahead and change these real quick. So I went ahead and took off that mangled propeller, and you can see here that this does have a little like notch system. So you can see like a half moon rotor shaft here, and on the propeller portion it's like kind of like a half moon as well, and you just want to match that up here and put this on. It does, that's going to be a little difficult. So you can see how this thing here, when I push down on it, it's sinking way in, so it doesn't look like it's going to be as easy as I thought to change the propellers on this. So it's kind of a con right off the bat here that this thing slips down. You can see what I mean when I try to push the propeller on there. How am I going to do this unless I take off this little LED? So looks like what we're going to need to do is unscrew this little LED so we can actually push up and hold the gear up, which is unfortunate, to be able to put on our new propeller. So let's go ahead and take this LED off, and then we can put our finger on this gear and push and hold it up while we put on the new propeller. So you can see that I'm just pushing the gear up, and now this thing will not actually push down, and I can go ahead and put the propeller on and then go ahead and put in that screw that I just took out. Okay, so once the screw's back in, you can put your LED back on the same way you took it off, and put that screw back in to hold the LED on. Just one more little tip: when you're doing this, be really careful. These screws are really tiny, and I've actually dropped the screw into the gearing down here like twice, and it went ahead and stuck to the motor down in there because it's magnetized, and it just took me about 5 minutes to get it out of there. So when you are doing this, just be really careful of that. Try not to drop that in there. Okay, so finally got those two propellers swapped out and everything back in working condition. I got batteries all plugged in here. So let's go ahead and start all this stuff up and see what happens. I got the battery in here, so I'm just going to power this guy on with this power switch here. Let that sit there on a level surface, and then go ahead and power the controller on and the FPV monitor. And we can see immediately that we have FPV in the screen. It's looking good. Let's kind of just see what our latency is. So it looks like it's a pretty good, fast transmission. I'm not seeing any latency or no stutter yet. Let's see how the smoothness is. Sometimes you see some stutter on these quads, so let's just give it a sec here. Looks good. I'm not recording yet, but just the regular FPV looks good. I'm not seeing any stutter there, so that's promising. And we can see that we have the blue lights flashing on the quad. Let's kind of go up and down here. It looks like we did bind and we're ready to fly. And since I don't have any instruction manual, I really don't know what all of these controls do. So obviously this is to start and stop the video camera recording. So there it is recording. Let's see how the lag is now. So that's promising. I'm not seeing any lag in the FPV, even though we started recording video. As far as frame rate, you know, looks very good. Looks like they did a good job on this one so far. I'm going to stop that video. Here's how you take the pictures. You're going to see the screen flash. Got a countdown on the pictures. And as far as arming this one, I really don't know how to arm this, so I'm just going to start clicking some buttons. Anyway, here's the, you know, darkening and lightening the screen, I believe. Doesn't really seem to be doing anything much in this lit situation. And as far as arming goes, let's see how we can arm this thing. So both sticks to the bottom, arms, disarm. Or it looks like it will disarm if you just pull the stick all the way down. So those are your options. Kind of cool, just like a regular GPS type of quadcopter. Let's see what we can do here. So the throttle trim doesn't seem to be doing anything. I'm not hearing any beeps or anything at all. Looks like this is going to be trimmed for the yaw, and then these are going to be trims for the pitch and roll. So I was hoping that this might be like a camera adjustment, but you know what, the camera is staying still. There's no adjustment on the camera, so it looks like you're just going to have to adjust this with your finger. It looks good so far, guys. Let's go ahead and take this thing out to the field, recharge all these batteries up. You want a fresh charge, obviously, on all this stuff. And go ahead and take this out to the park and do a thorough flight test on it and see how it does. All right, let's get out there and fly. All right, cool. So we're at the park, and let's go ahead and give this thing a thorough flight test, test out its functions, see how the FPV looks on the screen. Don't forget with this one, it looks like you can tap in, since it is 5.8 gigahertz. You can tap in with your 5.8 gigahertz goggles. If you can scan for that channel, just like all of these 5.8s, you can pick that up and use goggles if you wanted to. And it looks like this one may not have a problem with lag as far as I could see on the bench. But let's go ahead and test all that out. Let's go ahead and boot it up and test all the functions. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it on real quick here. Let's go ahead and turn on the controller. Turn on the FPV screen. So we immediately have FPV on the screen here. And let's go ahead and bind it. Just up and down, binds it. You hear that beep there. Let's go ahead and take off and see how this thing does. Okay, so arming, I'm going to go ahead and start recording on the card there. So we are recording, lifting off. So it does have a little bit of punch, that's cool. So I basically lifted off, and I'm just kind of letting off on the throttle stick. And this should be the altitude hold mode, so I should be able to just control it without touching the altitude. And it should be able to fly no problem. I'm bringing it down just a little bit because I don't want to be in the sun. But let's just kind of hover it a little bit higher, maybe right here. And let's see how well it sticks to this altitude. I am getting a little bit of wind coming from this direction, just about 5 miles per hour. Let's go ahead and give a close-up look at this thing. So you can see the video quality on the screen. I'll have that recorded up here. So kind of a neat looking drone. It's kind of like a longer cylindrical shape to it. Kind of neat. Okay, so I'm assuming this is rate 1 basically. So I'm full pitch forward here. Flying around. Whoops, looks like we dropped a little bit. Let's go ahead and pick it up. Let's see if that happens again. I'm just gonna fly full on. All I'm doing is adjusting the yaw. It's like maybe when you adjust the yaw, it might go up and down a little bit, but not bad. Letting off the stick. This doesn't have GPS, of course, so it's just going to go ahead and coast until it slows down. Bringing it down a little bit here. Let's see what our yaw rate's like. So there's the yaw. Full yaw, very slow in rate 1. Now this one didn't come with instructions for me, unfortunately, but let's just see if we can figure out what these buttons do. So I'm going to work with the left 2 triggers right now. So left top. No idea what that just did. Seems like nothing actually. Okay, and no, that's not doing anything. So the left bottom, is that doing anything? Nope. Does not seem to be doing anything either. And you can see it dropping there. I wasn't really touching it, and it was dropping. It kind of seemed actually that it was dropping on its own when I pressed that button, so maybe that's landing actually. Maybe that's an auto land. Let's try that. Left bottom trigger. Oh, okay, yeah, so that's an auto land. Go ahead and land it. So that left bottom one was an auto land. Let's try to do an auto takeoff. Maybe the top. Maybe we have to arm first. Top left trigger. Yeah, okay, so it has auto takeoff and landing. Left top and bottom trigger. Let's try the left top trigger, or the right top trigger. Full pitch forward. And okay, so that's a return to home. So we launched from this direction, go out a little ways, hit that top right trigger, and it is coming back. Looks like it's fairly accurate actually. Haven't been spinning much. Bottom right trigger. That's going to be headless mode. So it looks like, yep, I'm pushing forward, it's going out forward, pushing back, pulling back. So far it's accurate so far. Looks like the headless might be accurate on this version I got. Let's go ahead and turn that off. Oops. Okay, there we go. Almost lost orientation there for a second. Okay, so that was those functions, the two right, left, and top triggers, and right and left. Let's do left stick. I hear 3 beeps. Okay, so that's going to be our rates. A lot quicker. See, that pitch is a lot more pitch. 1. Clicking in again. 2. Clicking in again. 3. So 3 rates of flight. There's a speed on that guy. Looks like it's dropping, not able to really hold its altitude too well when you're at rate 3. Let's go back into rate 2, seems like a good one for video and everything. Okay, right trigger or right thumbstick. There's our flip. Okay, so I pushed it in and it looked like, yeah, so if you're going forward and you push it in while you're going forward, it's kind of hard, but it will do a forward flip. Whoa. And if you hold it, it looks like it'll keep flipping. You gotta let off the stick, stop flipping. Let's go do a range test real quick. I think that's pretty much the last thing we're gonna be able to do. So I'm flying out full pitch forward here. I'm gonna go into rate 3 just because it's having a little trouble fighting this wind. I'll pick it up a bit. And I'm gonna go back and forth. Oh, the FPV, you can see that, it's getting a little scratchy, but I am still in control. I'm just gonna keep flying forward until I notice some dropouts in control. So I'm way over here, probably 200 to 300 feet. FPV's cutting in and out. That's enough for me. This thing's got great range for how small it is. So you can see that FPV, I'm full pitch back, and the FPV is kind of chopping in and out at range. So that was actually pretty impressive on the range on the control sticks. Control range. Looked like the FPV range was crapping out before that. That was a little weird. It was kind of coming down. I was holding it and it was coming down. I know the battery's probably pretty much spent, but let's try to do a punch test. That's what you can expect for gaining altitude, dropping altitude all the way down, letting off. So it does level pretty good, its altitude. Looks like the lights are blinking. I'm not sure how long they've been blinking for, but I can kind of barely see them, so they are blinking there. And there's our low voltage landing, it looks like. So cool. So that was a great test. I'm not sure exactly what the time is on that, but I will have it flash up on the screen. So I'll have had the flight time pop up on the screen there so you can see, you know, what this, I'll go ahead and look at the video so you can see what the flight time is to expect. And you know what, this thing did pretty good. It went through all of its functions. The headless actually worked good. The return to home seemed to work good. It did have 3 rates of flight. Let me go ahead and turn this off. You can always tell it's getting really weak when the FPV craps out. This is kind of cool on the controller. You can actually turn the FPV screen off separate than the controller. So if you didn't want to drain your battery with FPV, you just want to fly line of sight, you can go ahead and have one on or the other, just the controller on. It had auto takeoff and landing. It had flips. It had 3 rates of flight, which actually got going pretty quick. The altitude hold seemed to work decent, not bad at all. And the FPV screen was clear and easy to see. Of course, in direct sunlight, it's not going to be very easy to see, but you know, if the sun's not right on it, it should be okay. It didn't look to me like this brightness or dimming worked on this controller when I was on the bench. I didn't try it here in the in the park, but it didn't seem like that was working, so maybe that's just defective on this one. But overall, I think it's pretty cool, honestly. Aside from that little thing I had there on the bench where two of these propellers were kind of chewed up right out of the box. Not sure what was up with that. Anyway, guys, I hope you like the review of this guy, and I will have the links, don't forget, down in the description of where you can check out the current pricing and all the specs on this guy. And I hope you enjoyed the review. I do a lot of reviews like this, so check out the channel. I think you'll like it, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.